I have
I'll do this whole thing. Mike Freight? You have Mike Freight. Okay. We're back here on Live from Salina here on Community Access Television. I'm James Lowe, and we've got members of our own Salina Tea Party with us. Gentlemen, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
My name is Joe Winship of Gypsum, Kansas.
I'm Charles Rom of Bennington, Kansas.
Now, how did you guys get involved with the Tea Party? Or were you the one that started the local chapter, or how did you get started?
Well, actually, back in March, end of March this year, there was people were calling for organizers of local tea parties, and so I looked it up on the internet to see if anyone had one in Salina yet, and there was one started in Salina, started by Marlene Bonilla, and so I helped her with the first one, and then she mentioned that she'd kind of like someone else to take over for the next one, and so I said I would do that, and then from there I've just been carrying the baton, I guess.
That's cool. So were you with Tea Party from day one, or did you come join along the way? Or?
Basically from day one, Joe told me he got involved with the Tea Party and was helping out, and something that struck my interest, so I got involved with him.
That's cool. So you guys have monthly meetings, or how do you guys get organized to get these tea parties put together?
Well, there's a group of us that meet from time to time. Not anything regularly scheduled, just whenever it comes up.
So how did you guys? I noticed that you guys had the Tea Party Express here in Salina a couple months ago. How did you get? Were they just passing through, or?
Well, we were looking at their schedule, and they were in Denver on one day, and Kansas City 2 days later. So we contacted them and asked them to stop in Salina. They said they would.
That's cool. So since you guys have got this whole movement going, have you guys seen an increase in people coming to the tea parties and things like that?
There has been an increase. There's just a lot of people who are very frustrated with government and with the way the local, state, federal, just the whole government picture is being run. The common person, I think, just feels like that no matter what they do, nothing changes, and things just keep getting more and more and more. Government keeps taking more liberties away, gets more control, puts more limitations on what we do. And I think there's just such a frustration out there, and some things have happened this year that have caused a lot of people to want to get involved or try to find another way of trying to change things, because things we've done in the past just haven't worked.
Well, I've noticed you guys have got, just from the first one that you guys did, every time you do one, I notice that there's different people, and a lot of times there's more people at this event. Why do you think people are coming out for these?
Well, like you said, people are very frustrated. They don't have control over their government anymore. What government was instituted by men to serve men, and not to rule over them. And one of the things that we promote on a regular basis is getting back to the Constitution. Oh, yeah. And the 10th Amendment of the Constitution says the powers not delegated to the government by this Constitution are reserved for the states and the people. And we've gotten way beyond that. And what we've done is we've gradually handed more and more power to the federal government, and they've become bigger and larger. And now we send all of our money there. We do whatever they tell us to do. And it's not a government of the people, by the people, for the people anymore. It's become a government of the government, by the government, for the government. Yeah. And so that's, as to date, we've actually distributed thousands of these constitutions to people, asking them to read it. That comes to the Declaration of Independence. And some of these have gone to area high schools for their government classes. Yeah. So we're trying to encourage people to become more aware what the Constitution is and how it can protect us.
Now, with the winter months and things coming on, do you guys have anything planned, or are you looking towards 2010 for any major things coming up or anything?
I've been out of the loop a little bit for the last couple of months, had some other obligations come up. So Joe could probably answer that better. I kind of think we're done with things for this year and probably won't really get things started until probably sometime in the spring next year, but Joe could probably answer that better.
Well, there's a lot of Tea Party organizations around, like one of my good friends, Linda Tyler's with Kansans for Liberty out of Wichita. And do you guys communicate back and forth, or is it just kind of sections like Salina Tea Party doesn't really communicate with the rest of the Tea Parties or anything like that?
Yeah, and it's more than just tea parties. There's different organizations, and we communicate with one another. There's a group called Our Caucus, and they take candidates through a vetting process, and then they're going to allow the candidates to answer questions and tell where they stand on the Constitution, and then go through an interview process, and it's ourcaucus.com. And people can go there and find out more about these candidates that are running. And like we work with groups like that, Liberty Alliance. We communicate back and forth quite a bit. So
now, with the 2010 elections coming about, are you guys gearing up to make sure that the people that are running know that you guys have an opinion and your voice and everything?
Absolutely. I sent out. Right now we have an email contact of several hundred people. I just sent out an email telling them that Jerry Moran was going to be in town this week, and asked him to go. And we're very fortunate. Jerry has done a better job than 90% of the representatives in Washington. But we want to not let up. I mean, there's areas there could be improvement. He has stood strong on the Second Amendment, gun rights, and he now has come out in support of the 10th Amendment resolution sponsored by Mary Pilcher Cook in the state Senate, and he's come out and support that now, so that's a positive sign. But sometimes they forget that the money's not endless, although he does have a good voting record, and he voted no on the stimulus bill, and he's working hard against the health care bill, and so I appreciate what he does.
Well, with like I said, with 2010 coming up, and then eventually with the presidential race coming about, do you guys see that the Tea Parties are going to have an effect on the elections coming around?
With the number of people that showed up there in Washington, was that back in September 21st? With the number of people that showed up there, and with the level of frustration that we have seen in the last few months that we've done this, I think the Tea Parties will have a big effect. And I hope what the Tea Parties really have an effect on is talking to candidates and making candidates aware that the document, the Constitution, is what they are to follow, and they take an oath to uphold that Constitution as they go into office. And yet, 90% of the legislation that's being passed is unconstitutional. It's in areas that the Constitution doesn't give power to. So my hope is that the Tea Parties will have a big effect in drawing the attention of the public as well as the politicians, those who are running to get our vote, that you need to read your Constitution. You need to understand what it says. You need to know the limited powers. It says right here in Article 1, Section 1, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in the Congress. Our elected officials need to become aware and start acting like that we have granted them and granted our government some powers over us for our benefit, for the defense of our liberty, and instead of stomping on our liberty and doing things that are restricting our liberty, they need to go back and start repealing some laws and repealing some legislation and start following the Constitution.